morning, everyone. Today we will be doing the poem IncHCAPE ROCK by Robert Southey. The IncHCAPE ROCK is a ballad written by Robert Southey. A ballad is a poem or a song narrating a story in short stanzas. This poem tells the story of a 14th century attempt by the abbot of Aberbrothock to install a warning bell on IncHCAPE Rock, which was a notorious sandstone reef about 18 kilometers off the east coast of Scotland. It goes on to tell how the bell was removed by a pirate who subsequently perished on the same reef while returning to Scotland in the bad weather some time later. Now, as you can see, the left side is the poem and the right side is its explanation. As I read each stanza, I will keep explaining. No stir in the air, no stir in the sea. The ship was still as she could be. Her sails from heaven received no motion. Her keel was steady in the ocean. Now when the poem begins, we see in the first stanza, the poet describes how a ship was standing motionless in the absence of winds as well as sea currents. Her sails were not moving and her keel was fixed in its position. So there was no movement. The ship was absolutely motionless because the winds were not blowing. Without either sign or sound of their shock, the waves flowed over the IncHCAPE Rock. So little they rose, so little they fell. They did not move the IncHCAPE bell. The poet goes on to say that now since the waves were not flowing very violently, it could not move the IncHCAPE bell that was put over there by the abbot of Aberbrothock, that we will come to know in the next stanza. Now here the poet describes how waves were flowing over the IncHCAPE Rock silently. They were moving at such a slow pace that they could not even manage to ring the bell that had been installed there to signal the presence of the reef. We come to know that there was this big reef which was submerged in water and only a little part of it was visible above the sea level. Generally, the ships traveling did not come to know about this reef. The worthy abbot of Aberbrothock had placed that bell on the IncHCAPE Rock. On a buoy. In the storm it floated and swung, and over the waves its warning rung. Now in this stanza, the poet reveals that it was a monk, the abbot of Aberbrothock, who had installed the bell at IncHCAPE on a buoy. Now a buoy is an anchored float serving as a navigation mark to show reefs or other dangerous hazards in the sea. In a storm, This boy would move violently, causing the bell to ring as a warning to all the sailors. So when there was a storm, the water would touch the bell on the boy and the bell would start ringing. This way, the people traveling in ships, they would come to know about this perilous rock and would divert their direction. So it was a blessing to all these sailors. When the rock was hid by the surge's swell, the mariners heard the warning bell, and then they knew the perilous rock and blessed the abbot of Aberbrothock. In this stanza, the poet says that when the IncHCAPE rock was under water, sailors could hear the bell and know of the rock's position in the sea, and so as to avoid colliding with it. And for this, they hoped that God would reward the abbot who had, thinking about all the sailors, put this bell on the boy. The sun in the heaven was shining gay. All things were joyful on that day. The seabirds screamed as they wheeled round, and there was joyance in their sound. In this stanza, the poet describes one particular day when the sun was shining brightly and the seabirds were screaming in joy. Everything was bright and full of happiness. The boy of the IncHCAPE bell was seen, a darker speck on the ocean green. Sir Ralph the Rover walked his deck and fixed his eye on the darker speck. Now in this stanza we come to know that the boy on which the IncHCAPE bell was installed was visible as a dark spot amidst the green color of the surrounding water. This speck was further noticed by Sir Ralph as he was walking on the deck of the ship. He felt the cheering power of spring. It made him whistle, it made him sing. His heart was mirthful to excess, but the rover's mirth was wickedness. In this stanza we come to know Sir Ralph was in a very happy mood. He was whistling and singing as the thought of spring cheered him up. However, his joy comes from wickedness. This means that his heart was full of cruel feelings. His eye was on the IncHCAPE float. Quoth he, "My men, put out the boat and row me to the IncHCAPE rock, and I'll plague the abbot of Aberbrothock." In this stanza, Sir Ralph tells his crew members to put down his boat and to sail him to the IncHCAPE rock so that he may cause trouble for the abbot of Aberbrothock. The boat is lowered, the boatmen row, and to the IncHCAPE rock they go. Sir Ralph bent over the boat and he cut the bell from the IncHCAPE float. In this stanza, we come to know that his crew members sailed Sir Ralph to the IncHCAPE rock. And he cuts the bell from the boy over there. Down sank the bell with a gurgling sound. The bubbles rose and burst around. Quoth Sir Ralph, "The next who comes to the rock won't bless the abbot of Aberbrothock." In this stanza, the bell of IncHCAPE sinks in the water, causing bubbles to rise and burst on the surface. Sir Ralph predicts that the next sailor who comes to the IncHCAPE will not ask for any blessings for the abbot, for they will have nothing to thank him for. He says so because he has already broken the bell, and now whichever ship would cross from there, they would not be able to know where this perilous rock was, and they would collide with this perilous rock, and the ship would break, it would collide and break, and then there would be death and devastation. Sir Ralph the Rover sailed away. He scoured the seas for many a day, and now grown rich with plundered store, he steers his course for Scotland's shore. Now in this stanza, Sir Ralph sails away from the IncHCAPE Rock and does his job of a pirate for quite some time, and then with his loot he proceeds again towards Scotland. As we all know, Sir Ralph is a pirate. He plunders the travelling ships. He plunders and loots whatever those ships are carrying. So when he cuts off the IncHCAPE bell, after that he goes on his way to plunder other ships. And when he has gathered a lot of jewelry, a lot of wealth, he proceeds back towards Scotland. So thick a haze overspreads the sky, they cannot see the sun on high. The wind hath blown a gale all day, at evening it hath died away. Now in the next stanza we see there is a thick haze all over the sky, and the sun has become invisible. While there had been a strong wind blowing previously, it was all but gone by the evening. Everything had become silent. On the deck, the rover takes his stand. So dark it is, they see no land. Quoth Sir Ralph, it will be lighter soon, for there is the dawn of the rising moon. In this stanza, Sir Ralph stands on the deck but cannot see any land around him because it has become totally dark. He tells his crew members that once the moon rises, there will be some light for them to see. Canst hear, said one, the breakers roar, for methinks we should be near the shore. Now, where we are I cannot tell, but I wish we could hear the IncHCAPE bell. Now since nothing was visible, there was no moon, everything was dark, one of the crew members says that they must be near the shore, since one can hear the waves breaking somewhere nearby. Because you know, when the waves are moving and when they dash towards or dash with land, a piece of land, then there is a different type of sound, and the sailors are able to recognize this type of sound. So this sailor says that maybe they are very near the shore because he could hear the waves breaking somewhere nearby. However, without the IncHCAPE bell, it is impossible to figure out their exact location. But that crew member, that sailor, goes on to say that without IncHCAPE bell, they would not come to know where they were. Exact location could be located if they knew where the IncHCAPE bell was. With the ringing of the bell, they came to know about the location too. But now there was no IncHCAPE bell because Sir Ralph had cut the bell and it had sunk in the waters. They hear no sound. The swell is strong. Though the wind hath fallen, they drift along, till the vessel strikes with a shivering shock. Oh Christ, it is the IncHCAPE Rock! In this stanza, the ship is moving slowly through the water, till it suddenly strikes a large object, and its entire structure is collided. The crew realizes that they have hit the IncHCAPE Rock. Sir Ralph the Rover tore his hair. He cursed himself in his despair. The waves rush in on every side. The ship is sinking beneath the tide. In this stanza, we come to know that Sir Ralph has lost all hopes. And as the ship collides, he curses himself. And after that, the ship starts to sink with the high tide. But even in his dying fear, one dreadful sound could the rover hear, a sound as if with the IncHCAPE bell, the devil was ringing his knell. In this stanza, Sir Ralph hears the devil tolling the bell or ringing the bell that signals his death as his ship is sinking. He felt it was a deathly music of revenge. This place had become his tombstone. It was as if he had himself dug a pit for himself in which he himself fell. Now this was the poem, and before doing the moral of the poem, let us quickly do a recap of it. As you all know, the poem begins on a calm note. The waves are flowing over the IncHCAPE Rock without any impact. Everything is silent and motionless. The abbot of Aberbrothock had placed a bell on the IncHCAPE Rock to warn the sailors about the perilous rock. When the Ralph sees the bell, he feels jealous of the abbot's popularity and decides to cut the bell. He asks his men to sail him to the bell. He cuts off the rope of the bell and the bell goes down with a gurgling sound. Pleased, the Ralph moves on and after plundering ships, returns back to his land. On the way, suddenly the weather seems to deteriorate. Thick haze is covered all around. A violent storm began to blow. Nothing was visible to anyone, but the Ralph was sure that the weather would soon improve. The moon would be out and everything would be visible again. The sailors wished they could hear the IncHCAPE bell, and at last the ship collided with the IncHCAPE Rock and got destroyed. Sir Ralph drowned along with all his sailors. But even in his dying fear, one thing the Ralph could hear, and that was the sound of the bell, which he felt was being rung by the devil. Let us see the moral of the poem. The IncHCAPE Rock is based on the idiom, as you sow, so shall you reap. Tit for tat, and what goes around comes around. If you sow happiness, you will get happiness. And if you sow sadness, you will get sadness indeed. This, in fact, is the rule of nature. I hope you all learnt this lesson of nature. Now let us quickly see the rhyme scheme of the poem. Now how do you see the rhyme scheme? When we see each stanza and we see the last word, the rhyming words at the end of each line, accordingly we see the rhyme scheme. Now in the stanzas, in all the stanzas, there is a regular rhyme scheme. For example, the first stanza has got the words Cb at the end, Cb, motion, ocean. So we take it, C becomes A, B becomes A, motion and ocean become BB. So the rhyme scheme is AA, BB. And this is for all the other stanzas. It is a regular rhyme scheme. Same rhyme scheme is followed in the whole poem. Do read the poem and enjoy it. Also watch part 2 of this poem. I am putting part 2, video part 2 of this poem. Please go through that too. If you have any problem, please ask me, put it in the comment section. You can even mail your queries to me. If you have still not subscribed my channel, please subscribe my channel and also press the bell icon for the latest notifications. Do take good care of yourself. Goodbye.